Singaporean who passed away last week. And she used to come for the lessons في التحولات interim. um, and then when we finished the Nubla Sugra, like she did she like a celebration to finish the book and everything. She was Khala Salma, right? She was someone who was in Tarim for a few years, and she was someone who was very gracious, very hospitable, and also Ustazah Zainab Ustazah Mariam came to Asia, I came to Malaysia, Singapore as well. Like we actually went to her house, Khala Salma's house at Kuratinggi, and we had a lesson there. Those of you who went with us, like at her beautiful house in Karatingi, like we had like a daura, right, a few years ago. So she passed away last week. May Allah have mercy on her soul, and raise her in her levels in the day of judgment. May Allah, and inshallah, we want to recite Surah Fatiha and three Surah Ikhlas, three, for the soul of Khala Salma. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم وغير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يكن له أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make these recitations to be a gift for her and her soul, right? And to place her in peace and highest stations in paradise. I mean, um, so that actually began the class also to just saying Eid Mubarak to all of you. May Allah accept our deeds, inshallah. Right, so we have gone through the different chapters in the Sirah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, regards to his family, his uncles, his aunties, his radha'a, his wet nursing. And now we're coming to the migration. Yes, and there's a Mariam has done some research on some of your questions that you all have asked the last lesson. She has sent it to me for me to translate. Inshallah, I will translating it. Inshallah. Mm. Today, the lesson is we're going to speak about the migration of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that so the meaning of migration is to leave, right? To leave a place, to go to another place. Um, so the hijrah and or the migration of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Prophet Sallallahu commanded his companions in Mecca to leave for Medina, uh, of amongst the Muslims, to go from, it was a commandment, it was compulsory on the Muslims to leave Mecca for Medina to join their brothers, the Ansar, right, the people of Medina. And he said, indeed, Allah, the mighty and majestic, has arranged for you, brothers, an abode wherein you will be safe. So they began to consecutively live in batches. They left, bit by bit. So we all know how Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right, and the companions, like how they were in Mecca and how many things they had gone through in Mecca, at the hands of the disbelievers, being tortured, being sanctioned, and they went through a lot of difficulty, right? And so as for himself, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam stayed behind in Mecca at first, waiting for the permission from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to leave and migrate to Medina. Can you scroll? So Sayyidina Umar, he had left, and Sayyidina Talha and Hamza and Zayd bin Harith and Abdurrahman bin Auf and Az-Zubair bin Awam and Abu Huzaifa and Osman bin Affan and others. And may Allah be with all of them. They all migrated initially, and they migrated before Rasulullah, and so the migration continued uninterruptedly until no one remained behind in Mecca with Rasulullah except for those all persecuted in their religion on Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib and Sayyidina Abu Bakr bin Abi Quhafa. Mm. Right? So all of the Muslims had left. All the Muslims had left. All those who could leave, all those who could leave had left. Mecca and gone to Medina. The one who was left was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ali and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Right? And of course, there were those who were kept captives by their own families. There were of the Muslims who were locked up by their own families in Mecca. there were those who were also persecuted, right, to force to abandon their religion. So when Quraysh realized that the situation at this is at this late stage, when they realized what was going on, they realized that the Muslims had all left, was all done secretly. They assembled together in their nadwa together with Shaitan, right, who appeared in the form of an old Nashik sheikh, right, an old sheikh from the Nash. Right. Right. So can you scroll? And it said, now, right. So Sayyidina, can you scroll? The one who's in charge of the document. Um um scroll. And began to consult one another as to how to deal with him. And they began to fear the Arabs siding with him. And he gained prominence. So eventually they decided to kill the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where Jibril came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and said, do not spend this night in your bed. And therefore ordered Sayyidina Ali to sleep in the bed as a decoy. And so Sayyidina Ali slept himself covering Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's green striped cloak. And that's the first of those who placed himself in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mm. Right, so here, when we see like in the form of Iblis, like he came, this is interesting, it's actually a very important point, right? That Rasul, the Iblis, he came as an old man from the Najd. Najd would be right today, modern day UAE, that is called Najd. Right? That part of the Arabian Peninsula that's called Najd. Mm. Right. So when they had gathered in Darun Nadwa, to discuss what to do about the Muslims having gone, to Medina. Right. So at first they had all kinds of discussions and ideas, right? And that Shaitan wanted to ensure that they would do what they have to do, which is to murder or to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. Right. So Shaitan, interestingly enough, he came in the form of an old man that was from the Najd. Mm. Right. 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 So someone elderly. So someone he came at the form of someone elderly, so as to command respect, right? Respect some as to command respect as someone who has good opinion, right? So in a way, right? So mm. And the same thing he did it the same way with the story of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah. When Sayyidina Abu Hurairah was placed as a guardian over the wealth of the Muslims, Shaitan appeared again. He appeared three nights in a row as an old person, stealing the wealth of the Muslims. And Sayyidina Abu Hurairah would catch him, and threaten to bring him to Rasulullah, and Shaitan would say, let me go, I promise I will not do this ever again. And the very next time he would do it again and again. And eventually the last night, sorry, the last night, in Medina, the last night whereby Sayyidina Abu Hurairah caught Shaitan again, he said that if you really want to get rid of me or stop me from coming here, then recite Ayatul Kursi. So every night, Abu Hurairah said, and then Abu Hurairah will meet Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So every morning, you meet Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam will say, what happened to your captive last night, O Abu Hurairah? Right? And then Abu Hurairah said, oh, I caught him, but I let him go because he said he will never do it again. And Rasulullah said, he will come again tonight. He go, he's a liar. And eventually, in the final night, when Abu Hurairah said to Rasulullah, "Ya Rasulullah, I let him go because he said to stop him from coming is to recite Ayatul Kursi." And Rasulullah said that this person, right, is Iblis, a shaitan, right? He is a liar. But this time around, tell the truth, right? Get rid of him. Is to read the Kursi. Mm, mm. Uh, so, uh, so, hadith Umm Sunnah is the hadith whereby Sayyidina Jibril came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the form. There is also hadith Ummul Bid'ah. There's a hadith called Ummul Bid'ah whereby Iblis came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the form of the most foul human being. Subhanallah. So Iblis does take the form of human beings. Um, um, and also so this was one of the example. One of the example. One of the examples whereby Iblis appeared in the form of a human being, and he gave the suggestion that one young man from every one of the tribe, right, of the tribes of the Quraysh, to come together and to strike the Prophet ﷺ in one strike. So the Bani Hashim, they're unable to, seek retribution, right, from all the tribes, and they have no choice but to accept blood money, right? There was the situation of Iblis, right? So of course Allah knows what they are planning, and Allah is the best of planners. And so Allah subhanahu so Rasul Sallallahu had said Sayyidina Ali, like, oh Ali, I sleep in my bed. This will be to be a decoy. So they will think there's some still in their bed, still in his bed, and they will wait for him to wake up. But it was Sayyidina Ali who was in his bed. And to cover himself with the cloak of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And we emerged from his front door. Those who were waiting outside his home to assassinate him, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he took some sand and he sprinkled on top of them, right? And he recited from the verse of Surah Yasin, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ سَدًّا وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ سَدًّا فَأَغْشَيْنَاهُمْ فَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ, from Surah Yasin. So they actually could not see the Prophet ﷺ, and in fact they fell asleep. Right? They actually fell asleep. So Allah removed the ability for them to see him. So none of them saw Rasulullah ﷺ, and he put dust over their head, and that they fell asleep. And the Rasulullah went to Abu Bakr and said, "Oh Abu Bakr, Allah has given me permission to leave and migrate." So Abu Bakr replied, "Us together, Ya Allah, companionship, Ya Rasulullah." Right? And some said, "Yes, companionship." Right? So upon which, Abu Bakr began to cry out of happiness, right, that he could have, this private, uh, trip, right, with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Abu Bakr brought two camels that he had prepared for the journey for his travel, and his travel guide Abdullah bin Urayqat, whom he had hired. Right? So Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he had prepared these two camels, right, for the hijrah, right, for the hijrah for with him and Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This actually actually happened before the night whereby Rasulullah left, right? So it happened actually a few days before, right? So Rasulullah had informed Sayyidina Abu Hurairah and Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right, that he has been given permission, right, to leave Makkah. Right. So Rasulullah SAW and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, they left Mecca. Like, no one knew of his departure except Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr had ordered his son, Abdullah bin Abu Bakr, like, to eavesdrop for them on what the people of Mecca were saying. So then they will know, what's going on. And he ordered his fleet slave, Amr bin Furayha, to herd Fuhaira, to herd his sheep during the day to cover, right, the tracks, to cover the tracks of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Right. So subhanAllah, the night when they left, right, Abu Jahl found out that Rasul had fled from his house. He went straight to the house of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and his daughter was there, Sayyidina Asma. And Abu Jahl asked him, asked her, "Where is your father?" And Sayyidina Asma said, "I don't know." And Abu Jahl slapped her across the face and caused for her ear to bleed. Hawla wala quwwata illa billah. And Sayyidina Asma, she was known to be the one of two belts, because what she used to do was that she used to get a belt around her waist, and she tore it in half to carry food, right, to Rasulullah SAW and her father on in the cave. So you understand, see how Sayyidina Abu Bakr had prepared for this trip. So it was not a matter of like, okay, khalas, we're going to go and migrate, and we're going to just rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the preparation. Oh, he had a full preparation, right, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so he had commanded his free slave Amir bin Hayra, right, to bring the sheep, in the daytime to cover the tracks, right, and bring them to the farm to rest at night. Right, so that was the plan, right? Because there were people who were ex-trackers amongst the Arabs, and they could track from the footprints of a person where the person was. Right, so Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right, had taken all of these lengths, right, to ensure, right, that they were not able, would not be able to follow them, right, by having Amir bin Hurairah, to bring the sheep, right, to cover, right, tracks of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Rasulullah. I said that Asma bint Abu Bakr also was now arranged that she would bring them food, like, for 3 days. We know that Rasulullah and Abu Bakr, they went the opposite way. And Medina was north, they actually fled south, like south, because everybody's gonna run north to go and find them. And so they went south, and then they stayed in the cave for about 3 days so that the search parties would disperse. And it's all ingenious, mashallah, that the planning of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Um, now, so they reached the cave of Thawr, and as soon as they entered it, the moment they entered this cave, Thawr, on the mountain, it's a very small cave. And the moment they entered it, Allah sent a spider to build a web over the mouth of the cave, and a tree which was at the entrance of the cave, and also there were wild doves, right, who had come to lay their eggs on top of the cave. So they concealed the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so subhanallah, like this is to show, as if there is nobody in the cave, right? Because angel, for spiders, right? Oh, mashallah, I didn't know that. Right, but so that's it. That spiders don't actually make webs in the house except after being there for 6 months. Information. Didn't know that. So spiders don't actually just make a house, or make a web a house and make a web, and then no. Spiders actually kind of check it out for 6 months and then they make their web. Oh, mashallah. Right. So and wild doves don't make their nests anywhere near human beings at all. And it is well known. They are wild doves, right? They don't come near human beings. Right. So they would, wild doves don't come near human beings at all. Right. So it is the themed ones that come to human beings and they ask for food from human beings. But the wild ones, won't come within, a mile of you. They will stay far away from human beings. Right. So for there to be, a nest, not just the doves there, but a nest, right, whereby they were laying their eggs, like that it was, logically speaking, there wouldn't be any human beings there. So the police followed the traces. They were still able to follow the traces of Rasulullah, despite, the efforts in, right. And however, Allah followed the plan, right, to capture him and cause them to be confused. Mm. And in fact, it was Abu Jahl who had gotten an expert tracker to track down Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right? Subhanallah, right? And so they actually came to the mouth of the cave, and their feet were right at the mouth of the cave. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr would say to the Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, if they were to just look down at their feet, they would see us. Right? And Rasulullah said, Ya Abu Bakr, what do you think of two people? Allah is their third. I do not have fear, O Abu Bakr. And so, subhanallah. And then Abu Jahl said to the tracker, how could they be here? Because there's a dove there, and there is the spider's web. So they left while they were only inches away from Rasulullah, showing Allah's power. When Allah's will, if Allah has not willed for something, it will never happen. Even if it's just inches away, it will not happen. Right. So subhanallah. Right. And then the Quraysh had given a reward of 100 camels, whoever could bring the Prophet ﷺ back dead or alive. Subhanallah. Right, so they said in the right, so Abu Jahl, when he was through the tracker, the tracker actually could track the tracks through the footprints of the goats, the goats of Abu Bakr. He could track the tracks of some through the tracks of the goats, right? And he actually came to the mouth of the cave, and the tracker said to Abu Jahl that either they entered into this cave or they went up the sky. They went up into the sky. And Abu Jahl said, you idiot, right? How in the world could they be in this cave? Right? Because, it is, there are doves here, and there is a spider's web here. Right? You wasted my time. And he stormed off. And they were just inches from Abu Jahl. Subhanallah. Right? Allah shows his power, eh? Mm. Mm. Right. So this reward of 100 she-camels was something so precious, right, and so expensive. It was a great amount of wealth, right, for the Arabs, right? So everybody was out searching. Every Bedouin, the most expert trackers were out searching for Rasulullah SAW because they want the 100 she-camels. It was a great amount of wealth. As they were all as it was like hundreds of people were searching, right, for Rasulullah SAW. They could not find him. MashaAllah. And the story of Sayyidina Abu Bakr in the cave, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, right, whereby Rasulullah would lie down and rest his head on the thigh of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right, and he would sleep. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he had actually, before they entered into the cave, Sayyidina Abu Bakr had taken his like, shawl and thought sure he had kind of stuffed all of the cracks and the holes, in the cave to prevent any wild animals or insects from coming out. Right. And so he had placed his one hole that was uncovered, and he used his He used his foot to cover it. I Out of fear that there could be a snake or a scorpion that's in there that might come out and harm the Prophet ﷺ. And sure enough, there was a snake in there. And the snake bit on the heel of Sayyidina Abu Bakr so hard, right? That Sayyidina Abu Bakr, he really, held himself to bear with the pain of the of the snake bite. But it was so painful that he began to weep. Subhanallah, he went to weep, and his tears fell on the face of Rasulullah, who woke him up, and they woke him up, and he saw, Sayyidina Abu Bakr in a state, of being in so much pain, and he looked at the foot of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, and he saw there was a huge swell from the snake bite, and he spit on it, and he was cured immediately. Subhanallah. Mm, 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 mm. Right. And Abdullah bin Urayqa, right, he was not a Muslim, right, but he was a person who was like he had integrity, right? So he was trustworthy. And this is Abdullah bin Urayqa, who was their guy. He was not a Muslim, but he had integrity. So he would not inform the Quraysh about where Rasulullah was. Mm. Right. So right. And so the guide had taken Rasulullah some after 3 days in the cave. He took them along the seashore route because people will not search there. And because the way from Mecca to Medina is a straight route, in the deserts. That's the fastest way. To go along the seashore was a very long route. Right? But the guide had taken them that way because that would be the least possible way whereby they'll be found out or be caught up. But again, Allah plans and Allah allowed for one person to actually catch up with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and it was Suraqa bin Malik, bin Ja'sham, who was Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, sorry, my internet, my electricity cut off. Okay, so I'm just going to continue the story. So Suraqah bin Malik was compelled by greed, right, to pursue Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right, and so he actually heard someone say that they saw some along the seashore route, right. So he went there quickly, right, and he refused to give up his chase, right. So as he, but he realized that every single time he would catch up with Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his horse would trip over. And he would fall off his horse, and it was very strange because his horse would never behave in that way. It was his best horse, right? But he refused to give up. He did again and again, and every single time his horse would trip over. All by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah is protecting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So, and eventually he gave up. He gave up, right? And he had to say, so he knew something else was happening because this horse never trips up. This horse is a great is a good fine horse, right? So he knew something was amiss, right? Something beyond him, right, was happening, right? So Suraqah bin Malik, right? So Subhanallah. So he eventually gave up and he was not going to catch Rasulullah Sallallahu already. He already gave up. So he called out to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He wanted to just get he still wanted to get his portion. He called out to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and he said, yeah, he said, yeah, he said, oh Muhammad, wait up. Like, I'm not gonna catch you. I'm just gonna hear. He said, I am Suraqah bin Ja'sham. Look at me by Allah. I will inflict you no harm. I promise I'm not gonna do anything to you guys. I said, so Rasulullah says, Abu Bakr, ask him what does he want. Suraka, and he's gonna cash in on this. Right. So Suraka bin Malik, he said, write me a letter. And then there will be a sign to me and you that I met you and that I let you go in a sense that. Right. So Amir bin Fuhayra wrote a letter on a piece of bone or cloth, and he said to Suraka, what how will it be for you, O Suraka, when you wear the bracelets of Kisra? Kisra is the emperor of Persia. Right? And so there is a prophecy from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that the Muslims will conquer the land of Persia. This was beyond imagination at that time, right? Because these were superpowers of the world, right? For the Arabs to actually even do anything with the Persians, right? This was beyond belief, right? That that the Arabs would actually conquer Persian land. So the Suraka, he laughed, right? He laughed, right? But he realized but years later, right, during the caliphate of Sayyidina Umar, right, they actually conquered Persia, right? And Sayyidina Umar, he had the bracelets, belt, and the crown of Kisra. And Sayyidina Umar called Suraka bin Malik and said to him, this was the promise of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that you put on the basis of Kisra. But Sayyidina Umar took it back because he said, Rasulullah said, you're going to put it on and not keep it. See, thereafter. And so during the journey, he passed by Abad, and Abad is the one where we get very, very specific description of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And she had a goat, right? A small goat, like little goat, right? It had leg behind from the rest, right? Due to fatigue, right? It was a goat that did not bear any milk at all. It was not in the age of to bear milk. But Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he wiped the udder of this little goat. It was like a kid goat, and he said Allah's name, Bismillah Rahman Rahim, and he put it upon this goat, and the milk began to flow. It began to flow so much that he felt that he filled up like the buckets that were there. He fed the milk to the goat itself, right? And his companions until their thirst was quenched. Then he drank and he milked it again and he filled up, right? The buckets of Abad. Right? So when her husband came back, and he was so surprised that there were full buckets of milk in his home, mashallah. Right? There were full buckets of milk in his home. And he asked his wife what happened. She said nothing happened, except that there was a blessed man that came by, and she described Rasulullah so beautifully. It was her hadith that we have very exact description of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She was the one who was very an expert describing. And the man and her husband said, by Allah, I think that is the man the Quraysh are after, that is the wanted man. Right? Subhanallah. Right? MashaAllah. No. And so her name was Atika. Atika bint Khalid. Right? That was her name. She's Abad. Her name was Atika. Mm, mm. Right. So it was a miracle from at the hands of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that a small little like lamb, that was very weak, right, that it never produced milk, all of a sudden produced so much milk, right? That even the milk was fed to the lamb itself, right, to drink the milk. MashaAllah. Mm, mm. Right. So there's a story that so that was saying. Now she's reading the text. So she said that, so that was what happened, and that was a miracle, right, from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam during the Hijrah, right? And she described what she saw. Like until today, we have a description about Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, mm, mashallah. She said, there was so she described him as a very blessed man. And by him we got so much, milk, right, by his hands. And her husband said that is the guy the Croatia after, right? That is him. They both came into Islam eventually. Even Sadaqa bin Malik came into Islam eventually. They all came into Islam. Mm, ya Allah. Right, Subhanallah. Right, and so the guide continued to lead them until they reached Qubba, which was the outskirts of Medina. And that was on a Monday, 12th of Rabiul Awal. Right. So we know the 12th of Rabiul Awal, many things happen. So he Sidra as well. He arrived at 12th of Rabiul Awal. He alighted at Kuthum, bin al-Hadam's house and performed the Friday prayers, like Jum'ah amongst Bani Salim bin Auf in the depths of the valley. Like he was the first Jum'ah to be performed. Like why? Because in Mecca, it was not, possible to perform Jum'ah prayers in Mecca because of the persecution. Right? But there was the first Jum'ah, and this is the first Jum'ah to be performed in Medina. Right? So because now there's a community of Muslims and they could perform the Jum'ah prayer. So he then arrived in Medina and his camel knelt down 3 times of what would become the door of his masjid. So basically, when he entered into Medina, right, everybody was asking him to come to their place, and he said, "Let the camel be, for it is commanded." Mm. Right? So we see, with the entire story of the Hijrah, right? Like you see, there is a lot of effort on the part of Rasulullah, as well as a submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as to your methods, because many things happened that were out of his control, but Allah ensured the safety of Rasulullah. So again, right at the very end of the Hijrah, where even to choose where to build the masjid, Allah informed him by the camel. Right? So they left the camel be, and the camel walked, around Medina, and finally, he said, or she said, now in the place of the door of the masjid. Now, and so at the time, it was a place where dates were left to dry, and it was owned by Amr's two sons, Sahel and Suhail. And they were orphans under As'ad bin Zurara's custody. And it was been said that they were in the custody of Muaz bin Arfa. So they were two orphans who owned the land. So he bought the place for 10 dinars, gold coins, and he stopped over his luggage to Abu Ayyub's house, as he was one of Abdul Muttalib's maternal uncles. Right? So family, family. So he stayed in the house of his own family, and stayed with him for 7 months while the mosque was being built and his rooms were being built. Mashallah. And it's because when they built the mosque, they also built the rooms for the wives of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. At that point, he had two wives, right? Sauda and Sayyidah Aisha. Mhm. Mm. And the first words that were heard from Rasulullah when he entered into Medina, the first words was Afshu salam, spread peace, at'imu ta'am, feed the people, wasil arham, maintain ties of kinship, wasalli bil-layli, wa nas niyam, and pray the night and fall asleep, tadkhul jannata bisalam, and you will enter paradise in peace. So in Medina, there were idols that were worshipped by men, which people would now they went up and destroyed. So the mashallah. So to see the speech of Rasulullah when he first entered into Medina, what was the first thing that he counseled the people about? First thing he said is spread peace. Like say assalamu alaikum physically, and spread peace between spouses, between family members, between parent and child. Right? It's not just saying assalamu alaikum and then you go behind their backs and you backbite them and you slander them. La, but it is to actually ensure peace between people, to ensure happiness, to ensure goodness and righteousness, right, between people. mm. um, right, and the Rasulullah, he was given very concise, but you will say expansive speech, but he will say a few words, and it is enough. It is enough, these words, right, to suffice the believers. And so he said, so the first thing he said, spread peace is the most important thing, right? Meaning maintain good relationship with each other, be happy together. Then secondly is care for the poor, right? Feed people, right? Care for the poor, do charity. Then the third thing that he said is maintain ties of kinship. It is wajib, compulsory on you Muslims, right, to maintain your ties of kinship with your family members. Right? And then the third thing is look after your own soul, guard over your own soul, feed your own soul. By what? Night prayer. Right? Night prayer. Look after yourself by giving yourself some night prayer every single day while people are asleep. And if you do all of this, outward, peace with people, to maintain peace, you feed people charity, maintain ties of kinship, family, and worship, you will enter into paradise in peace. So then thereafter, Rasulullah had Sayyidina Zaid bin Harisa, we're down, Sayyidina Zaid bin Harisa, and Sayyidina bin and Abu Rafi with two camels and 500 dirhams, right, to Mecca. So they brought back Sayyidah Fatima, Kulthum, Sauda bin Zam'a, Osama bin Zaid, and his mother Barakah, who was nicknamed Ayman. So all the family members of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his daughters, his wife Sauda bin Zam'a, Usama bin Zaid, his adopted son, and the wife of Tana Osama bin Zaid, who was Baraka, Baraka binti Baraka Ayman, and they all came, all the family of Rasulullah. Abdullah bin Abu Bakr left with his father's family. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr's son brought the family of Sayyidina Abu Bakr, amongst whom is Sayyidina Aisha, the other wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, going down. Right. So now we're going to go into the freed slaves of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So the Mawali. Right. So the Mawali will be freed slave. Right. So not slaves but freed slaves. So here is Zaid bin Haritha is the first one. That he was a gift from Sayyidah Khadija to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom Rasul freed. Rasul freed. So Sayyidina Zayd bin Haritha, at first he married Zainab bint Jahash, who was the cousin of Rasulullah, but then he divorced her, and then Rasulullah married her to show that the adopted son, because Rasulullah, when he's freed Zainab Zayd, he adopted him as his own son. But Allah shows that the adopted son is not like the real son. So his divorced wife is permissible for Rasulullah to marry Sayyidah Zainab, because Sayyidah Zainab is not his real son. It's not his real son. So this entire marriage with Sayyidah Zainab was to actually really make firm the ruling that the adopted son cannot take the place of the real son. He's not the real son. So the laws of Islam don't apply, right, on the adopted son as how it applies on the real son. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Right. Then he has Sayyidina Zaid's son, Osama bin Zaid, whom Rasulullah loved very much. Then we have Sayyidina Thawban. Sayyidina Thawban is the one whereby, he got so sick once because he just thought to himself, whenever we miss you, Ya Rasulullah, we will just come to the masjid, we will see you, Ya Rasulullah. But then it occurred to me, in paradise, how will it be? If I miss you, what am I gonna do? It's all the mistakes of Rasulullah, they have been feet, but they will still come back to him, mashallah. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, it occurred to me, in paradise, and we miss you. Mm. Rasulullah. Mm. Mm. So Rasulullah have actually remained silent. And then Allah revealed the verse to him through Rasulullah. Yes, Alban, Allah has revealed. And whoever obeys Allah and the Prophet, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will unite them with the prophets and the righteous and all those of goodness, right? And how great a companionship in paradise. So Sayyidina Thawban, he was overjoyed with the verse that had come on the Rasulullah on this account, of them being united in paradise. Right? And all the companions were overjoyed. Abu Kabsha Sulaim, who participated in the war of Badr, he freed him and he passed away on the day Sayyidina Omar was appointed as caliph. Mm. They have Anasa, whom he freed, and he have Shukran, whose name was Saleh. I was said that Rasulullah he inherited the slave from his father, Sayyidina Abdullah. It also said that he had bought him from Abdurrahman bin Auf and freed him. Rasulullah has many slaves that he freed. And this is only just a few that I mentioned. Right? Rabah, the Black Nubian, he would occasionally permit people to enter into his group, and he would be alone, and he freed him, right? Mm, 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 okay. So Yasar was also a Nubian shepherd, right? And a very beautiful voice, very beautiful voice. So there were people from the Oraniyin, right? There were people that came to Medina and they had some illness, in them when they came to Medina. So Rasul said to them, go to my free slave Yasar, and he will give you some of the milk, of the sheep, right? And you'll be cured. So they went there, to Yasar, following the advice of Rasul, and they drank the milk and they were cured. Then they betrayed him. They were treacherous. They killed him, and they ran off all the sheep. And these are the people, and thereafter they were pursued, and these people, right? Um, so Rafi al-Aslam, he was given as a gift from Sayyidina al-Abbas, the uncle of Islam. He freed him and brought him the good news of Abbas, Islam, and he married him off to a slave woman, Salma, who later bore him Abu Rafi', right, his son, right? So, mashallah. right? So Ubaidullah, right? Then you have you have Abu Muwayhiba, like who he freed, Fadala, that in Sham, like Rafi', the slave of Sa'd bin al-As, like whom he freed. And so these are all the names of his freed slave, eh? And Miqdam, right? MashaAllah, she's reading all the names. Mashallah. So she's already at Karka, the Nubian, Zayd, Bilal, bin Yas's grandfather, Ubayd, the Haman, Ma'bul, the Coptic, right? Waqid's father, Hisham, Abu Dumaira. There's only a few names, eh? And there are way more. There's the Hunayn, Abu Usayb, whose name is Ahmar, Abu Ubaid, Safina. Safina has a beautiful story. Safina, his slave, who was owned by Salama. She freed him on the condition that he served Rasulullah throughout his life, which replied, even if you don't say to me this condition, I would do it. I will not part from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, mashallah. His name was Rabah, and it's been said that his name was Mahran. He's actually called Safina because of some dua for him to have great strength. And he had such great strength, this person, that he was like a ship that he would carry heavy, so much, he would carry heavy materials. He was like a ship. They nickname him Safina, and that's why he's called Safina. Abu Hind, mischief, whom he freed, and Anjasha and Abu Lubaiba, and they have been more than what we have mentioned. Like it is in the like Rasam freed so many, mashallah. Now amongst the women, she's reading all the names. Actually, all the names very fast. Like amongst the women, like, who were his slaves, can you go to the names? Salma, Rafi', right? Maria, Rayhana, Qaisar, Maimuna, Khadira, Radwa. So all of them, and there were more. There were more. Ibn al-Jawzi said he had 43 male freed slaves, 11 slave women. May Allah be pleased with all of them. And you should know that his freed slaves were not all together in Rasulullah at any particular time, but rather they were one after another that came to his life, and he would free them. So Sheikh Hassan Khan, I mentioned that in his commentary on Bulugh al-Maram, that he freed C3 people during his lifetime. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. So mashallah. So C3 equaling to the number of years that he lived. He lived for C3 years. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Right. So we're going to stop here. I'm going to release myself from translation so that we can take questions. Wait, hold on. Let me just and the translation is very fast, mashallah. Okay, now, okay, bismillah. Okay, bismillah. جزاكم الله خير هذا لل الدرس. إن شاء الله بنأخذ الأسئلة إن شاء الله. إن شاء الله. Were not answered. Mm. And they all answered. Are those that were not answered? Don't have. Okay. Do you all have any questions? كأنهم ماشي أسئلة لا أدري يعني كأنهم ماشي أسئلة ما عندهم أسئلة. about the migration of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then about his freed slaves. So today we went through the migration and the freed slaves, right, of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. هذه is a tricky question. Asking a tricky question. يعني هي تسأل يعني ما هي حقوق العباد أو موالي في زمن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، يعني هل لهم يعني حقوق أو يعني. They are free men. Like once the slaves are free, they're free men. Okay, they're free men. They're free men. If you want specifically to know the rights of slaves itself, it's in the book of fiqh. You can actually find it out there. In the books of fiqh, they actually speak about, the rights of slaves. But these people, they were all freed slaves. So freed slaves, they're free men. They're free to go wherever they want to go. They're free. Mm. So I'm not sure. I'm not so sure why the translation of the book states slaves when in the Arabic it is mawali, which means freed slaves, understood mean freed slaves. I'm not so sure why the translation is slaves. They are freed slaves. There's a big difference there. Slaves and free slaves, they're a big difference. Right? But many of them, while Rasulullah has already freed them, they choose to stay with him. They choose to stay around him and to serve him. They just by their own choice. And it's not that they were forced to. No other question. Any question? No other question. عندي سؤال يعني عن الشيطان، يعني إبليس ظهر كرجل عجوز، صح؟ شيخ من نجد. الله إن شاء الله. Okay, so my question to Saza was the shaitan appeared to Rasul. I mean, طبعا shaitan appeared to the disbelievers at the Nadwa in the form of an old man from the Najd, right? So I actually did ask her a follow-up question to ask her, exactly where is Najd? But she said she will get back to us on exactly where is this area called Najd. The definition of Najd is basically an area that is elevated, like a piece of land that is like kind of above what is around it. It's like an elevated piece of land, right? So she'll give it to us on exactly what is the this area of Najd, right? Because I was saying to her, it can't be a coincidence that Shaitan appeared as as an old man from the Najd when there is also a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was once whereby he said, "May Allah bless our Sham, may Allah bless our Yemen." And he said it three times. Then there was a man there from the Najd, right? So basically, as far as I know, the Najd is in the the UAE region, right? That is where Nash is. But she's gonna get back to us exactly where is Nash in the peninsula, or even beyond that. So there was a man from Nash that was there, and the man said, and the Nash Rasulullah, and the Nash Rasulullah, because he was saying, may Allah bless our Sham, our Yemen. And the man said, and the Nash Rasul three times he said, and the Nash Rasulullah, and some turned to him and said, from the Najd, right, from the Najd is where I see Qarnay Shaitan. Right, the Qarnay of Shaitan, right, will manifest from the Najd. Right, the word Qarn in the Arabic language can mean horns. The word Qarn can also mean 100 years. So Saza was saying that actually, in another book by Habib Abu Bakr al-Adani, right, in the past 200 years, so Qarni, 200 years. In the past 200 years, right, from the Najd, there has been so much fitna coming out from there. So much fitna coming out from the Najd. And Saza was saying that, that Shaitan manifests as a human being in the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What makes you think that he's not manifesting right now? I mean, what makes you think that he's not manifesting? He is. He's probably manifesting as human beings all around, in all this, like government bodies. He's right there. As what he did with the Quraysh. He just entered into their meeting and he just, gave them the worst idea. Like probably he's manifested. He is manifested. A shaitan. He is probably walking around as a human being, whispering to people or guiding people on his evil. Right, so she said that, and mashallah, from Najd, a lot of fitna has come up in our zaman in the past. And I asked her, when is this 200 years? That when did it begin? When will it end? And she says, Allah knows. Allah alam, Allah knows. I was 200 years of these people, creating havoc, on this earth, spreading fitna, spreading problems. Right now, they have come up in the past 2 years. She said in the past, like maybe 60, 70 years, they've come up with all kinds of fatwa that is against the mainstream Islam, and they're saying things that have never been said before, right? And they're going around calling other people kafir, and going around disallowing practices in Islam that are firm practices, and they're saying, all these things are all innovations, right? So these people have been going around, for some time. Allah Alam when it began and when it will end, for these people, right? But these are the people of the Najd, right? So I was just commenting that, is it a coincidence? I don't think it's a coincidence that Shaitan took the form of a man from the Najd, and we know the Najd, there are some refused to bless the Najd. He actually refused, He refused to bless the Najd, subhanallah. And that was part of her answer. Subhanallah, there is a like indication. She said it's an indication. There is an indication that cannot be ignored, right? From there, because of what we know of what Rasul said about the next, that the 200 years of shaitan will come from there, right? They'll be the source of shaitan's fitna. هناك سؤال أخير، سؤال إن هي سألت يعني لماذا يعني ليس كل من قد لقي بالنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دخل الإسلام؟ يعني كثير منهم ما دخلوا الإسلام، وقد لقي النبي ورأى المعجزات ورأى يعني لماذا كثير منهم ما دخلوا الإسلام لما رأى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ Right. So basically it is, I just saw there was a earlier question. I just read the bottom part of the passage. Right. But I'll ask the next question as well. I should say that basically, Allah knows, right? But it could be that there were issues in themselves. They had arrogance, they had, pride. Right, there were things about them that was preventing them, right, from submitting, because Islam is about submission. The meaning of Islam is to submit, right? So it takes from a person, to actually bow down and to submit, themselves and their wants and their intellect, right, to the way of the Sharia, the Prophet, and what Allah wants of us. So it does take a lot from a human being to actually bow, right, and to submit themselves, especially in a society whereby there were many people who were arrogant and many people who were, in power, and they did not want to submit themselves, like, to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, whom they viewed lesser than them. I said it was beneath them to do that. Right? That was one of the answers. That was the answer of Sada. She said, Allah Alam, Allah knows the states of people's hearts, like why they saw the proofs clearly in front of them, right? But they denied believing in it. وهي سألت سؤال يعني كيف الصحابة عرفوا أن بيقين يعني أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم هو الرسول. يعني كيف؟ لأن هم قد من جاهلية الآن دخلوا في الإسلام وغيروا يعني حياتهم تماما، صح؟ يعني وتركوا ما على يعني آبائهم يعني كان عليه، فتركوا تركوا حياتهم قبل الإسلام، ودخل الإسلام في حياة جديد. يعني كأنه هذا يعني شيء ما شاء الله يعني. فكيف هم فعلوا هكذا باليقين والجد ما شاء الله ما شاء الله. Hey, mashallah, Baina, the verse had the word Baina appeared twice in the verse. How about this is the quoted. So said that it is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if I say Moses are all gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they came to realization, they understood, they saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they had the Quran, and just Iman just came to their hearts. It's by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some of them to the point whereby they would, they would fight their own, family members. They would fight their own fathers and their own brothers who were disbelievers. They didn't do that, right? Then there was the strength of their iman that they had, and there was the understanding that they had. Right? So, no, mashallah, it is from the gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's will, because your iman is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah makes it strong, right, for you. And the Sahaba, Allah had prepared them, and Allah had, given them the position, mashallah. Barakallahu fikum.
كما
Inshallah,
قال
Ustadhan,
كما
naam.
عفوا كما قال لا تهدي من أحببت، انظري لا تهدي من أحببت ولكن الله يهدي من يشاء.